Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to the video. I hope everybody is doing great today. Today is the day, guys. Week 2 is starting. This is going to be an absolutely amazing week. And today's video, we're going to be talking about what every Overwatch League team is doing wrong right now. What do they need to do to start improving? What are some of their biggest issues? These are all things we're going to go over today. I've been getting a ton of comments recently. You guys have been asking me to make a video analyzing some of the teams in the league, what their problems are, stuff like that. So I figured this would be an awesome video. I can briefly go over what some of the team's issues are. Obviously, none of the teams in the Overwatch League are perfect. Some do have more problems than others, but what is certain, every team has things that they can work on and improve on. Whether you're the New York Excelsior, London Spitfire, or Houston Outlaws, you have stuff to work on. And once again, I am just so excited for this week, guys. It is going to be an amazing one. I can feel it. There is something in the air. We're kicking the day off with Seoul Dynasty, Dallas Fuel. Both teams look like they're on the rise. Dallas Fuel made some amazing changes. Seoul Dynasty, this is their meta. Oh man, it's going to be a wonderful day, a wonderful week. And if you guys are excited to hear updates, news, everything you need to know about the Overwatch League this week, and any other week in the future, please consider dropping a subscription on my channel, guys. I upload videos every single day, so you can stay up to date. Drop a like on the video as well, and let's go ahead and hop into this, guys. We will just go down the list from 1 to 12. So starting off with the first ranked team, the New York Excelsior. As I mentioned in the intro of this video, guys, some of the better teams obviously don't have as many problems as some of the others, but there are some underlying issues. And one big issue with the New York Excelsior, which dates back for a very long time with their players, back when they were on LW Blue and competing in the Korean Apex scene. When it seems like the pressure is on and the lights are shining bright, these guys shell up and they aren't able to get the job done. We saw it in the Stage 1 finals against the London Spitfire. And something to note is that the London Spitfire had come fresh off a set against the Houston Outlaws that went 3-1, and prior to that they played a set 3-2 against the New York Excelsior. So they were coming off of 9 maps played already in the day. And New York Excelsior was unable to close the set out after going up 2-0, which is a huge problem, especially if you look at these guys historically, where they've played in huge semi-final matchups, whether it's against Lunatic High, Runaway, Kongdu. They've played against these top teams in huge matches in the playoffs, and they were never able to close it out. They always lost in that last Game 7, Game 5. Thankfully, these guys do have a long season to work on this. There are multiple stage playoffs, so come the actual playoffs, hopefully they're in a situation where they know how to close out sets and win in big moments. Sure, there are other concerns with New York Excelsior, but I do believe this is one of their biggest issues right now. They are an amazing team. Every single player on their roster is so good. If they can fix this issue, I believe they'll be the best team in the Overwatch League and probably win Season 1. And let's go ahead and move on to the next team, the Houston Outlaws, who are sitting at rank number 2. So obviously the Houston Outlaws are playing amazing Overwatch, and they have been playing amazing Overwatch since week 2 of Stage 1. So it's definitely hard to find out what their biggest issue is because they don't have a lot. But there are some, and I think their biggest problem right now is their control. If we do a mode breakdown for the Houston Outlaws and look at their win percentage on each mode, so let's look at the 4 game modes. First, we have Escort, which is payload maps. They are 11-4. Next, we have Assault, which is 2 CP. They're 9-6. Next, we have Hybrid. They are 12-2, which is actually really damn good. But where their biggest problem is, clearly, control. They are 9-11. These stats basically tell it all for the Houston Outlaws. They are very good on maps that involve pushing a payload. So Escort and Hybrid maps, their total win-loss rate on these types of maps is 23-6. Their 2 CP is alright. It's not the worst. It's not the best. They're 9-6. But where their clear problem is control, 9-11. So this is a mode that the Houston Outlaws definitely need to work on. And when the tiebreaker map is a control map, that is definitely something to worry about for the Houston Outlaws. So if they can clean up their control gameplay, these guys will be absolutely deadly. Moving on to the next team, we have Seoul Dynasty. And so far in Stage 2, Seoul Dynasty has looked great. It seems like they have cleaned up a lot of their Stage 1 problems, which I think one of their biggest in Stage 1, and you guys know this, I've talked about it a lot, was Miro. And he was not looking great. He was making a lot of mistakes, taking a lot of bad jumps. He was consistently putting his team in a position where they were down their main tank and they had to look to make plays. And because of this, I think it was forcing their Tracer players to make bad positioning errors, and therefore they were getting picked off as well, and it kind of just snowballed throughout the team. And yes, they have looked good on Stage 2 so far with Miro, but we gotta remember they've only played 2 sets so far. One of them was pretty close to San Francisco Shock. Of course, it was an improvement from Week 5 Stage 1, but it's definitely something that they need need to continue working on. As well as the coaching staff in Stage 1, they definitely made some critical errors, playing some players where I don't think they should have been, and at times they looked a little bit unprepared. So those are definitely two things that the Seoul Dynasty need to work on. Moving on to the fourth team, we have the London Spitfire, who I've talked about a decent amount on this channel. Yes, I do praise them a lot. I do think they are the best team overall in the Overwatch League. They did win the Stage 1 playoffs, but that doesn't mean I don't think they have some issues as well. One specifically that I have talked about a lot, similar to the Houston Outlaws, is their control. I'll do the same thing as I did for the Houston Outlaws. On escort maps, the London Spitfire are 13-4. On 2CP assault maps, they're 13-3, which is very good. Their hybrid maps, they are 11-5. So overall, they have very good win rates on all of the modes. Then we look at their control, they are 9-13, even worse than the Houston Outlaws. And I've mentioned this a lot in my channel. They struggle a lot in control, and the London Spitfire really need to work on that mode. As for another issue, which is similar to the Seoul Dynasty issue, the players they're running at times is somewhat questionable. There were times during Stage 1 where they were subbing out Prophet way too much in my opinion. I think Prophet provides too much for this team for them to swap him out. And then this brings me to their supports, where I think they're also struggling on figuring out who they need to run. So far in Stage 2, they've decided to run Hagopen over Bedosin. And that is definitely questionable in my opinion, because I think Bedosin is a much better Zenyatta player. I mean, he proved it in Stage 1. He was really the only Zenyatta in the league that looked even close to Jonak. He put out insane damage, he was building his Trank extremely fast, and overall he just looked really good and was always in good position. As for Hagopen, sure, he is also a good Zenyatta, but he's definitely not on the level of Bedosin, and I think that is very clear. So it's been very interesting so far in Week 1 of Stage 2, seeing them run Hagopen over Bedosin in some pretty important matches. They did lose against Houston Outlaws and they got the win against New York Excelsior. New York Excelsior was down Arc, and they had their best main tank player running Lucio. So that set could have easily gone another way. I think they really need to figure out their support situation and who they want to run and work on their control map. Moving on to the 5th ranked team, we have the Los Angeles Valiant. As I've mentioned so much in my videos, the Los Angeles Valiant are really inconsistent. And there is a decent amount of you guys who like to say in the comments that I dislike them or I hate the Los Angeles Valiant, and it's very clear in my videos. Just because I'm hard on a team and I point out things they need to work on does not mean I hate them, guys. I'm a fan of the Los Angeles Valiant. I am a fan of every single team in the Overwatch League. I hate absolutely no team or any player. And I've said it multiple times, the Los Angeles Valiant have looked great at times. But then they have those matches where they don't look so good at all. There are multiple players on their roster that are just super inconsistent. When we look at a player like Silkthread, he has shown he can be a great Genji, a great Pharah, a great soldier, and then he has those matches where he's just completely non-effective and they have to put Agilities in, and then Agilities does the same exact thing. We look at Unko, somebody coming into the Overwatch League who I was expecting to be one of the best Zenyatas, and it seems like he isn't having the same impact as some of the other great Zenyatas in the league. I think the best part of the Los Angeles Valiant and the most consistent part is their front line, their tanks, Envy and Fate. They are consistently doing their jobs, and you don't see them making mistakes that much. Fate did have one of his first bad matches last week in Seoul Dynasty, but other than that, he has been very consistent. It seems like he was always in good positions, making good decisions. Him and Envy are always in the right spot, the right time, helping their team do what they need to do to win. Other than that, though, it's been all over the place. Soon, he's either popping off and looking like one of the best tracers or widows in the league, or he's just playing average. And there's no denying this, guys. The proof is in their games. If you watch them, you look at the statistics, they have very, very below average games at times, and then they will pop off and look amazing at times. And I'm not sure why this is a big problem for the Los Angeles Valiant. I don't know if it has something to do with how they're practicing. I have no idea. But it's definitely something that they need to work on. Moving on to the next team, we have Philadelphia Fusion sitting at rank 7. And prior to last week, the Philadelphia Fusion were actually looking very inconsistent as well. And that was a huge problem they had. They were either contesting the best teams in the league, or they were losing to some of the worst. Coming into Stage 2 though, they've looked fantastic. Putting EQO in the lineup was really something that was unexpected, and it has been very pleasant watching him and the Philadelphia Fusion perform so far. Previously of Week 1 Stage 2 though, they have had a lot of clear issues, and I think the biggest one had to do with Fraggy and his play style and how he was really forcing aggressive play, and it seemed like at times the team didn't really want to play aggressive. And that was definitely a huge problem the Philadelphia Fusion had in Stage 1. And I think they figured this out, and throwing EQO in the lineup has completely changed the dynamic of the team. Now they are an ultra aggressive team. When you watch them play, they're basically go, go, go 24/7. You see Carpe playing aggressive, EQO playing aggressive, Poco's following up on Fraggy's jumps. They're just hyper aggressive and they look absolutely amazing. But what I fear for them will be a problem is when they have to play a passive play style. I don't know if Fraggy will be able to to do that. It was shown in stage 1 that whenever they tried to play passive as a team, it didn't work out at all, and that was when they weren't looking good at all. When a team forced them against a wall and they were on their back foot and they were forced to play passively, it never worked out for them. Sure, throwing EQO in there and playing hyper aggressive all times is a fix, but it's only a quick fix. When you go up against those top teams, which they will have to do this week, they have to go up against the London Spitfire, the Houston Outlaws. We'll see if they're able to adapt and play a different play style. If they can prove to me that they can do that, then they are definitely going to be one of the best teams in this league going forward. Moving on to the 7th ranked team, we have the Boston Uprising, who haven't looked so good in this meta so far. So the biggest issue they have, I think the biggest issue for them right now is that they need to adapt and they need to do it faster. Obviously, they did have a slow start in stage 1, and they ended up being a contender for the stage playoffs. So it could be the same situation where they're starting off slow, but as we did see in stage 1, that was a big problem and a reason why the Boston Uprising weren't able to make the stage playoffs. They started off too slow, and by the time that the end of the stage came, they were just a little too behind, and they put themselves in a position where it wasn't guaranteed. They're definitely going to want to speed up the process. In stage 1, they looked like they were one of the best dive teams. Their coordination was completely on point, and so far in the stage, it's looked like their teamwork has been thrown off a lot by the new meta changes. And right now, that is their biggest issue. They need to be working on figuring out how to play in this meta, how they need to adapt, and how can they do it fast. Of course, Boston Uprising could come out and have a great week too. That was just their major problem last week, and we'll see what they can do. Moving on to number 8, we have the Los Angeles Gladiators. The Los Angeles Gladiators have definitely done a good job identifying what their biggest problem was in stage 1, and that was their main tank. Remix just straight up wasn't playing that well in stage 1. So they went out, they got a great main tank. Fisher is one of the best in the world. He has done wonders for this team so far, but unfortunately they still didn't look that great in week 1. And I think they have this issue with their DPS players where yes, they are flexible, but it doesn't seem like any of them are at that level where they have mastered their role yet. Hydration and Surefour, they can both play a lot of heroes at a pretty good level, but honestly, neither of them have had incredible performances yet, where they just displayed an insanely high level of skill on a certain hero, and clearly carried their team. It seems like they're doing their jobs, but just barely, and they don't go above and beyond. And this shows with Asher as well. He's supposed to be their tracer player. Multiple teams in the Overwatch League have a tracer player, and they just specifically play that role, and they have it mastered. As for the Los Angeles Gladiators, we thought Asher was going to be that player, but then sometimes we see Surefour running tracer for an entire map, and you just think, well, why didn't they have Asher in if that's his role? And that's definitely the biggest issue, in my opinion, right now for the Los Angeles Gladiators. Their DPS players need to start focusing in on just one specific role and become very good at it. They need hydration to stop playing that Doomfist, off tanks, put him on Genji 24/7. Genji Pharah, Genji Pharah, Genji Pharah. Projectile. Put Surefour on that hit scan. Soldier, McCree, Widow, Soldier, McCree, Widow 24/7. Put Asher on that tracer. Have him play tracer only, strictly tracer. Their players are flexing too much, and because of this, they just look average. And let's go to move on to the number 9 team, Dallas Fuel. They honestly went out and made some great moves. They picked up Rascal, who is an amazing projectile player, something that they have been lacking for so long. And then they went and got AKM, who has absolutely mastered Soldier 76. And I definitely see the meta shifting into a Soldier 76 favorite comp right now. So having AKM on your team is a huge boost. The guy is very good at that hero. He has it mastered. He knows what to do in almost every situation. So that was an amazing pickup. Rascal with the projectile. So it seems like Dallas Fuel has made most of the right moves. But what their biggest issue in stage 1 was their tank situation. Their off tank was very inconsistent. Sure, Mickey looked good at times, but then he didn't look that great at times. And then we had their main tank situation, which was just a complete mess. XQC played the first week. The team went through like this mental state where they were depressed. XQC looked alright, but nothing spectacular. Then he got banned for the whole entire stage. Coco came in. He never really looked good. He was making a ton of mistakes. So the Dallas Fuel need to really figure out this tank situation. If XQC can play at that level and stay out of trouble, then he is a great option for this team. He knows how to play the role. He's played it his entire career, and he's always been a good Winston player. So they really need to focus in on keeping him out of trouble and making sure he can play the way he did against the Los Angeles Gladiators in every single set. If they are able to do that, then they will definitely be a top competitor in this league and make a good playoff run. Moving on to number 10, we have the San Francisco Shock. Now we're getting into the teams that really have a lot of problems. The main one with San Francisco Shock is they just don't have the right players for the right roles. They really lack in a projectile player right now, and having Sinatra come in doesn't really change that. I really don't think Dante has been a problem for them as of recently. Sure, at the beginning of the season he was a little inconsistent and made a decent amount of mistakes, but he's definitely improved a lot and looked like one of the better tracers in the league now. Sure, throwing in Sinatra might be an improvement on Tracer, but that's not the problem, man. These guys need a projectile player. They need a main tank upgrade. They need support upgrades. Thankfully for them, we are moving into a meta where Mercy is no longer necessary, and we can get Dak back on his Lucio, where he has looked great in the past, but his Mercy play was just, I mean, it was not good. Straight up, it just was not good in Stage 1. He was one of the worst Mercies in the league, hands down. So hopefully Dak is more comfortable on the Lucio, and they can start improving in that area. But like I said, there's just a lot of issues with a lot of their players. They need upgrades all around the board, and specifically, they really need a projectile player. That's where they need to start. Then they can maybe start thinking about bringing in an off tank, 2 more supports, build it up to a 12-man roster, and you can start doing in-house scrims. That will help them improve a lot. Moving on to number 11, we have Florida Mayhem. And again, we're into the teams that just have so many issues. And these guys are in the same situation as San Francisco Shock. They're both just lacking in talent. Coming into the Overwatch League, their DPS players were supposed to be the best part of their team. They've only looked average. Sure, they still are the best part of the team, but again, they're just average. The rest of the team, their supports aren't good. Their main tank, he just doesn't look like he knows how to play the role. They did go out and fix some of these issues. They picked up Saya player for the DPS. They picked up Awesome guy who will be playing main tank. But another big issue they have is lack of support from their management and their coaching staff. They have had one coach this entire time, which that is just horrible. You can't have one coach in a league where almost every team has about 5 staff members working. Yeah, they went and picked up an assistant coach, but that's it. They're still missing like 3 people that they need to have. They need an analyst guy, a statistic guy, another assistant coach. They need so much. And if they go and do that, then they can start improving this team at a faster rate, because the biggest problem with these guys is they have not improved much at all. Besides their DPS players becoming a little bit more consistent, other than that, they really just have not improved. So that's their biggest problem. And let's move on to the last team, the Shanghai Dragons. Unlike the Florida Mayhem, the Shanghai Dragons have actually been improving a lot. Their biggest issue was that they were really bad at the start. I mean, really freaking bad. Which means, yeah, they have steadily been improving, but because they started at such a low level, it is going to take them a very long time to reach a level where they can compete with even some of the average teams. They went out, they picked up some Koreans, they got a main tank, they got a support, an off tank, which is definitely the roles they were slacking in. The main good thing about the Shanghai Dragons so far has been their DPS players, and every single other role just looked horrible. Their main tank, their off tank, and their 2 support players. Actually very similar to the Florida Mayhem. And similar to the Florida Mayhem, they did go out and pick up some pieces that they needed. Both teams went out and got Koreans. The only thing I fear for the Shanghai Dragons is that they did pick up some relatively unknown / unproven players. So there is a chance that these players aren't that big of improvements. And they do have the language barrier between the Koreans and the Chinese players. So I do question how much this will help their team. Sure, they're going to steadily improve, but man, I don't know when they're going to start picking up some sets. It's going to be a while. And these players, if they are upgrades, aren't even playing until Stage 3, so it's going to take some time to work them in. The Shanghai Dragons are definitely in some trouble. I'm just glad that they have been steadily improving, and some of their games recently have been decently close. And that's it, guys. This is what I think the Overwatch League teams are mostly doing wrong right now, and what they need to work on. Let me know if you agree or disagree, and if you enjoyed this video, please do consider subscribing to my channel, guys. I upload videos every single day about the Overwatch League. Drop a like, follow Team Kingarna on Twitter at @team_Kingarna, and I'm out of here, guys. Thank you for watching. Peace.